Watch the hottest comics in one go. No splicing, all in one take. We strictly crack down on PDB behavior. Your support is our driving force to move forward. We look forward to your likes and round coins. Seven-year-old boy first tries archery. He hits the target with every shot, never misses a shot, but such talent was disregarded in his grandfather's eyes. Because he was the world's greatest swordmaster. His swordsmanship was supernatural. No one could match him. He could take an enemy's head from 1,000 miles away. He even created an automatic tracking swordsmanship with his life's work. This swordsmanship uses the power of one's breath to guide the sword, locking onto the enemy's aura. No matter how the opponent dodges, they cannot escape the fate of being pierced through the heart by an arrow. The most important thing in practicing swordsmanship is to overcome the influence of sharpness. His grandfather told him to shoot an arrow through a wooden stake 10 meters away in the wind. But just as he was ready to draw his bow with confidence, his grandfather came to the stake, waving his hand to signal him to shoot. This scared the boy. The weak sword was affected by the strong wind. There was a slight deviation. Grandpa's life would be in danger, so he shouted for Grandpa to get out of the way. Unexpectedly, Grandpa scolded him, "If you don't even have this much confidence, how can you inherit my legacy? You must consider the wind direction. You also need to consider the wind direction." He also had to overcome his mental barriers. This was as difficult as climbing to heaven for him, who was just starting to practice swordsmanship. Under the double pressure, he chose to give up. His grandfather looked at him with a knowing glance, and said nothing more. If you want to become a strong person, strong confidence is a prerequisite. The next day, the boy found an injured hawk at the foot of the mountain. It is a brave and loyal falcon. Once it chooses its master, it will follow for life, until death do us part. His grandfather told him to treat the hawk. If an archer has the help of a hawk, it will be twice as effective. So the boy began to make herbal medicine. He applied the styptic herbs to the deep wound on the eagle's wing. After several days of careful care, the young eagle finally flew in the sky again. The boy gave him a beautiful name, Ironblood, because when he found him, he was covered in blood. By this time, he had fully mastered the art of archery. Grandpa brought him to a clearing, and said he would teach him a movement technique called langbu. It was created by taking inspiration from a wolf's hunting style, and could greatly increase one's movement speed, making movement effortless, unpredictable and swift. But the boy's face turned awkward as he saw this. In his eyes, Grandpa was like a frog hopping around. Seeing this, Grandpa was furious. He roared, "You little rascal! Watch me!" With a loud thud, a cracking sound came from the ground. Grandpa moved like lightning. In a blink, he was in front of it. A wave of fierce energy like a wolf hit him. The boy stood there dumbfounded. A warm stream flowed down his pant leg, soiling the ground. Seeing this, his grandfather looked disappointed. He had been scared to pee himself in such a small situation. His pants were so cowardly and weak. It will be difficult to achieve great things in the future. Continuing south, he slowly said, "Wolf steps are not just about mimicking the wolf's movements. You also have to mimic the wolf's aura. When a wolf hunts, it exudes a powerful aura, making its prey unable to move. Then, it strikes with a fatal blow, biting through the prey's neck, just like how you were just now, suppressed by my aura. If this were a real fight, you would already be dead." He then asked the boy how far away he was from his previous location. The boy measured and said it was about 10 jang. As soon as he finished speaking, he showed a shocked expression. Grandpa's jump, like a frog. It covered a distance of 10 jang. For an archer, the most important function of wolf steps is to create distance from the enemy. You must engrave the steps deep into your bones. After saying that, he demonstrated wolf steps, leaving footprints on the ground. Practice the steps according to the order of my footprints. From then on, the boy began to train day and night. He mastered the steps in just 7 days, but such speed still earned him a scolding from his grandfather. 7 days to learn such simple steps? You're wasting my life. But in his heart, he was incredibly shocked. Even his father, who was known as a prodigy, took 2 months to master them. This kid only took 7 days. After months of training, the boy's strength had leaped forward once again. But to become strong, you must possess great courage and extraordinary skills. So his grandfather took him to a cave, and threw him inside. Just as the door closed, a hungry wolf with blood-red eyes pounced from the air. The boy was ruthlessly thrown into the cave by his grandfather. He spent his days fighting for his life against a hungry wolf. No matter how he knocked and shouted, it was useless. Grandpa stood outside the door, his face filled with worry. "Child, the rest is up to you." The boy could only desperately dodge the wolf's attacks. He knew that if he continued like this, he would surely die. He had to figure out a way to subdue the wolf. While he was thinking, the vicious wolf was already leaping at him again. A flash of cruelty crossed his eyes. Just as the fangs were about to sink into his shoulder, he gathered all his strength and slammed his fist hard against the wolf's head. A piercing scream erupted. The wolf, tail between its legs and foaming at the mouth, ran off. The boy, having hit his mark, seemed quite excited. For the next few days, Grandpa would drop food from the window every day, but he could only watch helplessly as the wolves snatched the food away. This went on for 4 whole days. He was starving and freezing, and could only lick the water droplets dripping from the cave ceiling. He realized that to survive, he had to be faster than the wolves. So, he started to study the wolf steps that Grandpa had taught him. He was thinking about how to use it in battle. Soon he grasped the key. He could instantly distance himself from the wolf's attack. From then on, the wolf could only watch helplessly as its food was snatched away. He was smug. He chewed on the food with gusto. After eating and drinking his fill, he used the grass rope he had used to tie the food to subdue the wolf. At that moment, his grandfather opened the door. The boy was clearly unhappy with his grandfather's actions, but his grandfather told him with a serious face, "This is only the beginning. You've only just mastered the basics of the wolf cloth. The essence of the wolf cloth lies in its momentum. Fighting the wolves will cultivate your killing intent." He finished the drawing, then threw a short sword to the boy, and locked him back in the wolf enclosure. But this time you're not facing one wolf, but a pack. Over the next 100 days, each day, the number of wolves will increase, and Grandpa won't be providing food anymore. You have to figure out how to overcome it, until you kill all the wolves, and they would become their own food. 4 days later, the boy's eyes became more determined. Shiro and the others faced each other. They still dared not make a move, but finally driven by hunger, they attacked their weakest companion. They even devoured the corpse cruelly. The boy immediately understood. This is the law of survival in nature. The last bit of pity in his eyes vanished. He roared. He charged at the pack of wolves. One of the strong wolves instantly leaped towards him. The boy no longer held back. His short sword pierced the wolf's throat like lightning. The wolf howled in pain before falling still. His eyes flashed with spiritual energy, glaring at the other two. He roared, "If you want to die, come on then." This startled who scurried away to a corner. The boy turned and cut off a piece of wolf meat, putting it in his mouth and chewing. The overwhelming bloodiness made him quickly spit it out. But to survive, he had no choice. And in the days that followed, he constantly fought with the wolf pack, vying for food. His mastery of the wolf's stomach gradually reached its peak. As time went on, the bloodlust on him grew stronger and stronger, covered in wolf blood, like a demon from hell. The boy was trapped in the wolf blood, fighting to the death with a pack of vicious wolves every day. Wolf meat was his only food. If he wanted to leave alive, he had to kill all the wolves within 100 days. The sharp fangs had left countless wounds on him, but he never gave up hope of survival. With his strong will, he trampled one wolf after another under his feet. 3 months have passed since his life of bloodshed and savagery. After constant fighting, the killing aura around him grew stronger. Only 2 wolves remained. Under his terrifying presence, they seemed to have lost their courage to attack. The boy's eyes were sharp, without a shred of mercy. His figure charged toward the 2 wolves like a cannonball. A loud bang exploded suddenly, accompanied by a mournful howl. The wolf pack was completely wiped out. This meant that the training was successfully completed. And at this moment, his grandfather opened the door. Though the boy was covered in wounds, his face was full of determination. But the murderous aura he exuded was chilling. Seeing this, the old man shed tears of relief. "Child, you have finally succeeded." The boy emerged from the cave. He looked at the long-lost sky. The iron eagle soaring in the sky let out a cry of joy upon seeing its master. He immediately raised his hand and summoned it to him, but the iron blood flew halfway and then turned to leave. It was as if it sensed something that frightened it. Just as the boy was confused, his grandfather explained that it was because the boy's killing aura was too strong. It caused the iron blood to be afraid to approach. After 4 days of recuperation, the boy's injuries were no longer serious, but his grandfather didn't give him much time to rest. He was told to immediately begin training in controlling his murderous aura. Then, he was thrown into a freezing waterfall by his grandfather. An unbearable coldness struck him to the bone. He felt like his bones were about to freeze solid. Just as he was about to give up and pass out, his grandfather outside shouted, "Quick, circulate your heart meridian. Control the flow of internal energy." The young man heard this, and a flash of insight lit up his mind. The Heart Sutra was created by Huineng, the 6th patriarch of Zen Buddhism. It only requires breathing techniques to greatly enhance internal energy. The moment he circulated the Heart Sutra, the icy feeling instantly disappeared. He felt a sense of unprecedented comfort all over his body. In the following time, he practiced his Heart Sutra, continuously pushing his limits. A few days later, a powerful aura emanated from the waterfall. The 3 flowers gathered at the top of his head. Countless bolts of lightning condensed above his head, flashing continuously. Even his grandfather, who had seen and known much, was shocked. Suddenly, a blinding flash of gold light passed by. An incredibly powerful wave of energy erupted from the boy. The weapon pointed towards its source. Many dancers spend their entire lives trying to reach this level. Seeing this, the grandfather instantly burst into tears of joy. His grandson could reach such heights. He died without regrets. Thus, Grandpa's training came to an end. Things have come to this. He has nothing left to teach. At this moment, Bloodsteel flew in from the sky. He then raised his hand again to summon it. He had now mastered the art of controlling his killing intent. Bloodsteel no longer feared him. 5 years flew by like a fleeting moment. He had mastered all the techniques his grandfather taught him through relentless practice. He had surpassed his grandfather in the art of sword and arrow. Yet, his grandfather said it was merely the foundation of archery. Lan Hai felt. Now, he combined the. He could now block swords with his chi, and never missed a shot. His skills were unmatched. And Grandpa, with a serious expression, said that the ultimate form of archery is the air vaporization sword. Shooting unseen is the pinnacle of swordsmanship. The boy, hearing this, looked puzzled. Isn't shooting without form just releasing air? He then cried out, asking his grandpa to demonstrate. But Grandpa waved his hands repeatedly, saying that he had suffered serious internal injuries, and could no longer perform it. Early tomorrow morning, you will set off to the ancestral land, the hidden village of the Divine River. There, you will find the ultimate martial arts, the infinite divine art and the divine shadow swordsmanship, left behind by your ancestors. In order to master these unparalleled martial arts, the young man actually dug up his own family's ancestral grave. But what met his eyes were 3 paintings depicting sword techniques. There was also an old wooden chest on the ground. Inside the chest was a sheet of iron body exercises and a family history book. This made him, who cultivated swordsmanship, exceptionally delighted. But the next second, he showed a shocked expression. This bow weighed a whopping 200 jin. He couldn't even draw the bow and shoot an arrow. Even lifting it was a struggle. He simply picked up the historical record and examined it carefully. He discovered that the 3 portraits were actually the divine shadow swordsmanship created by his 14th generation ancestor. Although this swordsmanship only had 3 generations, but it's the pinnacle of all sword techniques in the Jianghu. Every powerful martial art has a huge flaw. That is, the internal energy required to perform it will also be doubled. So our ancestors created the Wujigong. It can quickly improve one's internal strength with just breathing techniques. Invincible and healthy. I can't help but admire the strength of our ancestors. But when I turned the pages further, I found different handwriting. He was the 16th generation ancestor who created the Sword of Vapor, as my grandfather said. He was obsessed with swordsmanship all his life. He practiced the techniques of the 14th generation ancestor, but he could never fully understand them. Finally, he integrated swordsmanship into his sword techniques. He created the ultimate martial art of the Sword of Vapor. Wu Di suddenly realized after seeing it. The foundation of the Sword of Vapor was actually the Phantom Shadow sword technique. If he could master both martial arts, isn't it possible to shoot it with a sword from afar, and to cut it with a sword from near? So, Wu Di started to study the invincible divine art with great effort. He used the sutra his grandfather taught him as a guide. He actually increased his martial arts skills by several times in just 10 days. A 200-pound iron cast became as light as a feather in his hand. He came back to the swordsmanship portrait. He was lost for words for a moment. He had never practiced swordsmanship before, so he didn't know where to start. So he used a small knife to make a wooden sword. He practiced by mimicking the movements in the painting. Just as he finished practicing the moves, suddenly, a sword energy shot out from the first painting. The sudden event startled him, and he screamed in fear. He quickly bent over to dodge the terrifying attack, but he steadied himself. My mind went blank. What is going on? He used the same trick on the second portrait. As expected, the sword energy attacked like the wind again. He dodged and let out a laugh, already having a general idea in his mind. Next, he aimed at the third portrait. With a whoosh, this sword energy was as fast as lightning. Even though Wu Di was prepared, he almost got hit. After a series of probes, he finally confirmed his thoughts. The first painting represented the power of the sword. The second represented the speed of the sword swing. He then shifted his target to the third painting. As his movements synchronized with the painting, a deafening clang of a sword echoed out. The sword energy, carrying a whooshing sound and fierce power, struck forward. This was a combination of the previous 2 moves. The powerful impact left Wu Di struggling to defend. The 2 sides clashed for a full incense stick's time. The sword energy gradually faded away. The sword intent concealed within the painting is so powerful. If it's refined to its peak, its power will be enough to shake mountains and rivers. From then on, Wu Di began to practice day and night, repeating each move tens of thousands of times before he would stop. 2 years flew by like a white horse passing by. Wu Di is now a different person. With just a wooden sword, he can split mountains and stones. He realized it was time to leave. He suddenly felt a surge of power throughout his body. His charisma gathered on the wooden sword. A thunderous boom exploded. The entire tomb collapsed instantly. Then, he bowed 3 times to his ancestors as a farewell. As the 200-pound Iron Man gradually left, the rise of a legendary warrior began. The young man trained to master unparalleled martial arts. He swung his sword 10,000 times a day. He shot arrows thousands of times. At the age of 15, he mastered the strongest technique left by his 14th ancestor, the infinite divine art. In just 10 days, he increased his skill by 3 decades. At 17, he used the technique as a foundation. He perfected the top-tier martial art, the shadow swordsmanship. He eventually fused the swordsmanship into his sword techniques. He reached the peak of archery and swordsmanship, achieving the realm of ethereal sword. From then on, he could have shot with a single arrow, or sliced with a single sword. He envisioned a life of chivalry and wandering as a carefree hermit. But his grandfather told him that he had already arranged a wife for him when he was 4. He then handed him half a jade pendant, saying, "This is your token to become the son-in-law of the Tang family in Sichuan. The other half of the pendant is in your wife's hands." He then pulled out the Heart Sutra. Have him return the Heart Sutra when he passes Shaolin. The scene shifts. A group of people dressed in the style of the Northwest are about to behead a young boy. At a crucial moment, a sharp sword silently pierces the shoulder of one of them. The one who strikes is the undefeated, just down from the mountain. Seeing he is alone, they are still so arrogant. Without a word, they charged forward with their weapons. But a group of brutes were no match for an invincible opponent. He drew his bow. In a blink, he had released the arrows. But he, a novice, had no desire to take their lives. He aimed with precision, avoiding vital points. He rendered them unable to move. He waited until he had subdued them all. The boy clasped his fists in gratitude to Wu Di. He revealed they were both of the Jurchen tribe. He explained that there were frequent conflicts between the tribes recently. Wu Di, hearing this, was not interested in getting involved. He asked how to get to Shaolin Temple in Sichuan. The boy was slightly taken aback. He replied that Shaolin is located in the Central Plains region, while Sichuan is to the southwest of the Central Plains. It would take at least 5 or 6 months. Wu Di heard this, and a million thoughts raced through his mind. Before leaving, his grandfather said it would only take a month. Then the boy invited him to their tribe, and to prepare some food for emergencies. Soon, they arrived at the military camp of the Duko tribe. Wanyan Guyu assigned a companion to take care of Wu Di's daily needs. 2 days had passed in the blink of an eye. Wu Di also learned from his classmates that, nowadays, the Central Plains were ruled by the Ming dynasty. At this moment, Guyu walked in with a serious expression, telling Wu Di that the army of the Hiko tribe was 20 li away, about to launch a full-scale attack on their tribe. He had come to bid farewell to Wu Di. Looking at Guyu's departing figure, Wu Di inquired about the situation of the Hiko tribe. His follower replied that Hiko's strength was 3 times that of their tribe. Wu Di's eyes narrowed at the news. He seemed a little uneasy. The east wind blew, the war drums beat. With the sound of the war horn, the 2 tribes engaged in fierce combat. The already disadvantaged Hiko tribe suffered heavy casualties. Wu Di stood high up, gazing at the cruel war. He then told his follower to gather some branches. He used his knife to carve them into wooden daggers. He didn't use his full power, because he didn't want to cause too much bloodshed. He only did so to protect Guyu's life. He alone was like a million lions. Countless wooden daggers shot out like rain. The Hiko tribe was thrown into disarray by the arrows. Seeing this, the Duko tribe's morale soared. They pressed their advantage. The enemy's camp was routed. The Hiko tribe leader realized the situation was dire. He had never seen such skilled swordsmanship. He immediately ordered his men to sound the retreat. In the end, the Duko tribe won the war. The soldiers returned to camp. Osaka celebration banquet. Guyu ran excitedly towards Wu Di. He knelt down and performed the highest tribal ritual of respect, to show his gratitude and invite Wu Di to his father's feast. But Wu Di was not interested. He refused Guyu, citing fatigue. But when he returned to his residence, he saw flames filling the sky. The Guyu tribe was slaughtering the captives of the Hiku tribe. Seeing this, Wu Di felt a surge of anger. They had won. Why were they still killing? He then arrived at Guyu's father's victory banquet with a dark expression. The chief greeted him with a smile, expressing his gratitude. Wu Di didn't want to waste time. He directly asked the leader to spare the prisoners. The leader laughed loudly. "You may be skilled in martial arts, but you have a soft heart." Wu Di ignored him, and repeated his request. At that moment, a burly man suddenly roared, "What do you think you are? This is not your place to give orders." After finishing the drawing, he took out a dagger and shot it at Wu Di. Wu Di's face was gloomy. He was about to make a move. Unexpectedly, the sidekick next to him blocked in front of him. The sudden turn of events filled him with anger. Is this the kind of place where human life is treated like grass? He pulled out his dagger. His eyes full of killing intent, he shouted. The next second, he appeared before him like lightning. The dagger drew a streak of blood, cleaving the big man in two. Then, the killing intent hidden within him erupted. In his rage, he became like a primordial beast. The violent airwaves shattered everything around him. Just as he was about to unleash his slaughter, Wu Yu suddenly knelt on the ground with tears, apologizing. He couldn't control his father's thoughts. But I don't want to lose Wu Di as a friend. The murderous look in Wu Di's eyes gradually faded. I will never forget you as a friend. And I thank your father for letting me know the cruelty of the world. Hua Ba walked alone towards the central plains. A young man carrying a tiger appeared in the capital city. He attracted a crowd of enthusiastic people. He began to shout loudly. He hawked it in the street. Such a rare commodity attracted wealthy merchants to compete for it. Finally, an old man bid 200 gold coins and won. Wu Di never expected that the prey he had casually caught could fetch such a high price. He then took the huge sum of money to the famous Jude restaurant in the capital. He got to taste the famous roast duck of the capital. He didn't forget the purpose of his trip. He asked the innkeeper how to get to Shaolin Temple. The innkeeper said the journey to the Central Plains is long and extremely dangerous. He suggested he join a Biaoju, a kind of security agency that protects goods being transported to travel together. With his friends looking out for him, the southern suburbs of the capital are the only way to the Central Plains. Wu Di joined the Qinli Biaoju to go to Shaolin Temple. As they passed Tiger Mouth Mountain, all were on high alert. The terrain here was treacherous, and bandits often lurked around. Sure enough, Rooftop keenly sensed that at least 50 people were ambushed 20 meters away. Just then, the suddenly stopped the group. A group of bandits wielding weapons rushed towards them. The escorts drew their weapons, ready for battle. Ha ha ha. This mountain is mine. Leave all your money behind. I can't take it anymore. The two sides clashed quickly, but the bandits outnumbered them, and they were all seasoned veterans. The escorts were driven back step by step. The casualties were heavy. Wu Di was speechless at the sight. This would only delay his own time. So, he went to the roof of the car and drew his bow and arrow, facing the bandits. He had no mercy. Arrows rained down on them like raindrops. There were constant sounds of plop, plop, plop and bandit screams. The sudden event shocked the leader. He unconsciously looked towards the direction of the arrow. Though, of course, didn't miss this opportunity. He took advantage of the leader's distraction and slashed his sword across the leader's neck. As the saying goes, when a tree falls, the monkeys scatter. Seeing this, the rest of the bandits immediately fled in all directions. They looked at his fallen comrade's body with a gloomy face. Then he found Wu Di. Thank you for saving my life. We, the entire, owe you a life. We also invite you to be our deputy leader. Wu Di politely declined, saying that he's used to being free, and doesn't like restrictions. After a short rest, the caravan set off again. After a long journey, they finally arrived at the Taiha money exchange in the Central Plains. Wu Di told the leader that he needed to go to Shaolin Temple for a while, and would be back soon. The leader readily agreed, and said he would wait for him before continuing their journey. Wu Di then sped off towards Mount Song like a whirlwind. All martial arts under heaven originated from Shaolin. Wu Di looked at the ancient temple, unable to suppress his admiration for the sacred place of martial arts that has stood for 1,000 years. But as soon as he entered the temple, he was stopped by two monks. They told him that the temple was no longer open to visitors. Wu Di stated that he was there to return the Heart Sutra. The two monks quickly led him to meet the elder. When he learned that Wu Di had come to return the Heart Sutra, he was excited. It was great that the Heart Sutra that was stolen 50 years ago could be recovered. He immediately had the monk inform the abbot. When Wu Di heard the word stolen, he broke out in a cold sweat. Didn't Grandpa say he borrowed it? This old geezer is a real baddie. The abbot summoned all the elders together. Wu Di was very uneasy. If they found out that the Heart Sutra was stolen by his grandfather, he would probably not be able to leave the Shaolin Temple. It was too late. He could only grit his teeth and take out the Heart Sutra, and lie that he had found it by chance in a cave. Everyone was surprised. He clasped his hands together, and started praying for Buddha's blessings. At that moment, a short old monk slowly walked over. Learning that the Heart Sutra had returned, he was also extremely excited. Wu Di could sense an extremely powerful aura emanating from him. Then the old monk called Wu Di out, claiming he wanted to talk to him privately. Suddenly, his eyes became sharp. The tone changed. Wu Zun, what is your relationship to him? Wu Di was startled. He knew everything, so he stopped pretending. He is my grandfather. The old monk sighed. Your grandfather was so skilled. He dodged all my attacks with just his movement. Before escaping, he said he would return the Heart Sutra one day. Wu Di immediately thought of the langbu that his grandfather used. At that moment, a martial monk came before them. The old monk introduced Wu Di to him, saying his name was Mu. He was the next guardian of the Shaolin Temple. He also expressed that this kid had become too confident. This had caused his martial arts skills to stagnate. He hoped that Wu Di could defeat him, to break his arrogant and invincible spirit. The title Shaolin Guardian reminded him of a mythical legend. It was rumored that Shaolin had an invincible army, the 108 Lohan Formation. This formation was arranged by 108 monks. Trapped within it, the staffs interweaved. It was impossible to distinguish real from fake. 400 years ago, after the demon army unified the demon cult, they invaded the Central Plains martial arts world. Despite the emergence of various experts, they couldn't stop him. But this powerful demon was ultimately defeated by the 108 Arhats. He didn't even get to touch them. Since then, the 108 Arhats' fame became known to the world. Until the emergence of a man 40 years ago, he single-handedly defeated the four most powerful masters of the demon cult, and he slaughtered them all. In the following 3 years, he traveled across the Central Plains, eliminating all the masters of the demon cult. He fought in over 500 battles, undefeated. He became a god that the demon cult feared. He is Gu Yongpeng, the Overlord Blade. He then founded the Overlord Palace with his followers, and he challenged Shaolin Temple to unify the martial arts of the Central Plains. I defeated the 108 Arhats, and shattered their myth of invincibility. Just as he was about to take over the martial arts of the Central Plains, the Shaolin Guardian suddenly appeared. His Dharma staff technique was masterful, defeating Gu Yongpeng in just 3 moves. It also made him understand that there are people better than him and skies beyond the sky. The truth. And the guardian god back then was actually this short old monk. He is now old and frail. He was about to pass the title of guardian god to his disciple, Mu. Unexpectedly, Mu was extremely talented, but too arrogant. This led to him stagnating in his martial arts. The old monk hoped that the peerless Wu Di could defeat him, to shatter his self-esteem. Wu Di quickly waved his hand in refusal. What if he went too hard? Wouldn't that just invite trouble? Unexpectedly, the old monk suddenly revealed a sinister expression. If you don't comply, I'll tell the abbot about your grandfather stealing the Heart Sutra. Wu Di was speechless. This old monk is as cunning and treacherous as my grandfather. He had no choice but to agree. Mu on the other side looked disdainful. No one his age had ever lasted 3 moves against him. But Wu Di only wanted to let him make 1 move, then end the fight quickly. Unexpectedly, Mumu's first attack was the high-level martial art, Thousand Leaf Hand. The sudden attack stunned Wu Di. The next second, a flurry of blows like raindrops hammered against him. With a loud bang, a large hole was punched through the temple wall. Mu was startled at the sight. Did I hit him too hard? I wouldn't have killed him, would I? When the dust settled, Wu Di lay on the ground, disheveled and defeated. Anger surged through him. This bald monk hit so hard. He then reached out and removed the bloodstain from his nostril. His entire aura began to rise steadily. Today, you need to suffer a little. With a dong sound, Wu Di, with a speed that was difficult to see with the naked eye, punched him in the chest. The punch sent Mu flying back several meters. At this time, he was shocked. I've never seen such speed. He immediately assumed a defensive stance, the Iron Bell Shield, but under the unstoppable lightning-fast punches, he seemed to struggle to parry. Suddenly, Mumu's moves changed. A single breath, a lift. He thrust forward forcefully. Fortunately, Wu Di dodged in time. Just a piece of clothing torn. Seeing the other party launch a long-range attack, Wu Di didn't hold back anymore. He was better at using the invisible sword than abandonment sword. With a whoosh, the invisible sword pierced through Mumu's chest like lightning. Just as Wu Di was about to attack again, the old monk shouted loudly for them to stop. With a serious face, he said to Mu, now do you understand that there are always people better than you? But Mu stubbornly indicated that he still had a secret weapon. The old monk saw through his thoughts immediately. Is it the Demo staff technique? You haven't fully mastered that technique yet, the monk said. Even if you reach its peak, you're still far from being an invincible opponent. He could tell that Wu Di hadn't even used his full strength. Wu Di immediately stated that he had another set of swordsmanship called Divine Shadow Swordsmanship. He then picked up the old monk's wooden staff and demonstrated it to them. Because the first and third incarnations of the Divine Shadow Swordsmanship contained the aura of killing, it was inappropriate to display it in this Buddhist Holy Land. He directly demonstrated the second incarnation. The merciless sword set was performed. The old monk was somewhat shocked. He never imagined that there could be such exquisite swordsmanship in the world. Meanwhile, Mu was completely baffled. With his level of cultivation, he couldn't understand the secrets within. Until late at night, Wu Di said goodbye to the two and went down the mountain. At that time, at the foot of Mount Song, 3 people were desperately fleeing. One of them was seriously injured, his life hanging by a thread. This person was none other than Gu Yangpeng, the Overlord Blade, who had eliminated countless demon cult masters 40 years ago. He was once a god who struck fear into the hearts of the demon cult. He spent 3 years traveling across the Central Plains martial arts world, killing every single demon sect expert. Afterwards, he established the heaven-dominating palace to reorganize the demon sect. He set a rule of non-aggression with the Central Plains martial arts world. Yet, in his 60th year, he was betrayed by the disciples he had personally trained. This forced him to flee towards Shaolin Temple like a hunted dog. After facing relentless pursuit, only 2 trusted confidants remained by his side. Just as they were rising with a glimmer of hope for reaching Shaolin soon, suddenly, a few figures emerged, blocking the giant in front. The people who came were actually the leader of the Blood Shadow group from the Heavenly Dominion, the Mad Blade. This sight made the 3 of them gnash their teeth in anger. Even the Blood Shadow group, nurtured by the princess herself, had become a traitor. Chen Ning knew well that in their current state, they're no match for the Blood Shadow group. Quickly take the princess to Shaolin Temple. I'll hold them off. Hua Ba charged towards the Blood Shadow group, determined to die. Seeing her brother go to his death, Chen Jing's heart ached, but the most urgent priority was to save the princess' life. She then ran towards the mountain with Gu Yangpeng. They were on the run. In the blink of an eye, it was the early morning of the next day. They stumbled upon Wu Di taking a nap in the forest. Chen Jing felt a pang of concern when she saw Wu Di. She kindly reminded him to leave quickly, because the Blood Shadow squad would kill anyone who had seen them. Wu Di sighed in defeat. Why did trouble always find him? Meanwhile, the Shadow squad was chasing after them in the air. Chen Jing cursed under his breath. Damn it! He needed another incense stick's worth of time. Then he could reach Shaolin Temple. Things had come to this. He knew there was no escape. He placed Gu Yangpeng under a tree. Then he prepared to fight them to the death. She said coldly to the Wild Blade, "That boy has nothing to do with this. I hope you can let him go." But Wild Blade let out a cold laugh. The moment he saw us, his fate was sealed. Wu Di listened to their conversation, his face calm. He hesitated. This guy's not bad. Should we save him? Unexpectedly, Chen Jing was the first to act. He released his aura, which kept rising. He swung his sharp sword, forming a whirlwind of sword energy. This was his strongest attack, Hurricane Slash. It carried the force of a desperate gamble. You're going for my head with your mad blade? Seeing this, Huang Dao, his eyes narrowed. Are you trying to die with me? Then, his entire aura erupted. The Blood Shadow Devil Blade whistled as a slash of blade light slid past his side. His still body remained still. He took staggering steps forward. He knelt down directly in front of Gu Yangpeng, hugging, apologizing to the princess. Your subordinate will take a step ahead. He fell down as soon as he finished drawing. His breath was gone. Gu Yangpeng closed his eyes in pain, quietly waiting for death to come. The Mad Blade raised his weapon high. Princess, I apologize. I'll send you on your way. The Invincible finally understood what was going on. He realized that these scoundrels were traitors. In his mind, all traitors deserved to die. The sudden surge of terrifying energy startled Mad Blade. He couldn't believe that this young punk could have such a powerful aura. With a whoosh, the invisible sword shot out suddenly. Its speed was so fast, the Mad Blade couldn't dodge in time. He was pierced through the shoulder by the sword. Seeing this, the Blood Shadow squad rushed forward together. While Invincible looked calm, he continuously drew back the bow. The terrifying power actually uprooted the trees. The Blood Shadow group suffered heavy casualties in a short time. This scene made Mad Nice shout in his heart. When did such a formidable figure appear in the martial arts world? Thinking that Gu Yangpeng's injuries wouldn't last long, he immediately took the remaining men and fled. Then Wu Di began to examine Gu Yangpeng's wounds. Finding them too severe, he was probably at death's door. At this moment, Gu Yangpeng weakly requested, "Please, young master, go to Shaolin and get some medicine to stop the bleeding. Whether I live or not is up to fate." Wu Di heard this, and was silent for a moment. Ultimately, he decided to save the man to the end. His figure flashed like the wind. Such speed startled Gu Yangpeng. This young man's strength could probably place him among the top 10 masters. Inside Shaolin Temple, a dark figure dashed through. The guard monk Wu Di found the old monk and explained the situation. The old monk was compassionate. He immediately ordered Wu Di to get the life-saving medicine. Soon, Wu Di returned to Gu Yangpeng. He handed him the medicine. Seeing this, Gu Yangpeng was shocked. This is the Great Returning Elixir, a sacred medicine of the Shaolin Temple. It was so easily obtained by this little one. This is a Great Returning Elixir. Legend has it that it has the power to revive the dead, strengthen yang, and replenish kidney essence. After Gu Yangpeng, who was gravely injured and dying, took it, he instantly felt as if he had been given a second chance at life. After that, he was brought back to the Bai Wu Di. He was taken in by the caravan thanks to his reputation in the martial arts world. Meanwhile, the Mad Saber returned to the great heavenly palace. He reported on the situation of Gu Yangpeng. The Star Princess was Gu Yangpeng's most talented disciple and his designated wife. Upon hearing that her master was still alive, she simply smiled. That old man is nothing but a stray dog. He's not worth mentioning. First, spread the news of his death throughout the martial arts world. Then the demonic forces he controls will erupt in full force. When the martial arts world is plunged into chaos, it will be the day that my heavenly palace unifies the central plains. Soon after, the news of Gu Yangpeng's death spread throughout the martial arts world. Meanwhile, in the north, Bai Shi was leading tens of thousands of troops toward the central plains. They were the demonic army that had risen under Gu Yangpeng's protection. Each one raised their arm and shouted, swearing to flatten the entire central plains, to avenge their benefactor. The widespread rumors filled the martial arts community with fear. The 9 major sects gathered at Shaolin Temple to discuss a plan of action. The abbot raised his own question. The Palace of Heaven is located in the southern frontier. Why would Gu Yangpeng die in the Songshan Mountains, thousands of miles away? Gu Yangpeng has made great contributions to suppressing the forces of the demon cult. If he really died, the demon cult will surely use revenge as a pretext to conquer the Central Plains martial arts. But what's confusing is, the demon cult has a vast army, yet the Badian Palace hasn't taken any action. There are only 2 possibilities. One is that they are scheming something. Secondly, there's some kind of problem within their ranks. The head of the Huashan school, Xian Yangjinren, suggested, if the demon cult attacks, the first to be affected will be the Nangong family, one of the 5 great families in the south. We must take action as soon as possible. Go and support them. He proposed that the major sects form a martial arts alliance to fight against this. The idea was agreed upon by all the sect leaders. The abbot sent messages by carrier pigeon, proclaiming the alliance's will to the martial world. The news quickly reached the 5 great families. A storm was brewing. The martial world was in danger. The Pang and Huangfu families were the first to send troops. They rushed towards the Nangong family. Meanwhile, in the south, small family forces were being assassinated by the shadow group of the heaven-dominating palace. They have no choice but to submit to the Badian Palace, or face certain death. In just 10 days, the Badian Palace has brought all forces under its control, except the Nangong family in the Jiangnan region. Guan Pei is extremely excited about this. The reason why they didn't take any action when they joined forces with the demon cult was because they were letting the Blood Shadow Corps elite operate in secret. By laying in wait around the various southern forces, we can finally take them down and deliver a heavy blow to the martial alliance. On the other side, the 5 great families gathered at the Nangong family. Each family head had a worried expression. Nangong family head said solemnly, now the demon cult is heading towards the Jiangnan region. Before they gather, we must take a preemptive strike and weaken their strength. The head of the Zhuge family proposed that each family create a special team to ambush on the devil's cult's path and launch a surprise attack. On the other side, at the Qianli escort agency, Wu Di roared in anger, clutching his head. Due to the war in the south, the agency cancelled their trip to Sichuan. This was like a bolt from the blue for him, who was desperate to find his wife. With no other choice, he could only bid farewell to everyone at the escort agency and set off alone. But Gu Yangpeng directly suggested he go to the Shaolin Temple. The Tang family and the Nangong family are both among the 5 great families. Now that the Nangong family is in trouble, the Tang family will definitely send help. Maybe your future wife is among the reinforcements. And the martial alliance will also send disciples to the Nangong family. Taoist, you may go with them. Wu Di heard this. He suddenly felt there was some truth to it. Then, the 2 of them went to Shaolin Temple again. When the old monk saw Gu Yangpeng wasn't dead, he was greatly shocked. He learned from him that his disciple's current strength had surpassed him by far. He is ambitious and will stop at nothing to achieve his goals. He hopes to contribute his part in this war. The next day, under the call of Fangzheng, the disciples of the 9 sects gathered to support the Nangong family. Dongting Lake has always been the place where north and south meet. The disciples of the 9 sects gathered here to go to the Nangong family to defend against the invasion of the demon cult. Suddenly, Wu Di heard a familiar sound while on the way. He looked up. It was Tieshue, whom he hadn't seen in a while. Wu Di guessed that Tieshue must have gotten bored on the mountain and followed him here. Just as he was about to call him over, he noticed Tieshue looking ahead and constantly letting out a hissing sound. Wu Di realized that something must be wrong up ahead. He immediately ordered the boatman to stop. Everyone gathered and ran towards the bow of the ship. The sight before them shocked everyone. Countless bodies were floating on the water's surface. This must have been left behind by the battle between the Jiangnan forces and the demon cult. Could it be that the Nangong family has fallen? The scene shifts. Inside the demon cult stronghold located by the Yangtze River, a group of high-ranking demon cult members were planning their next move. The Grand Elder of the Heaven-dominating palace, Li Shixian, found this situation quite troublesome. The assault team formed by the 5 great families had already caused them to lose hundreds of elite troops. If this continued, it would likely affect the army's morale. Commander Gui Jia's face darkened. He hadn't expected them to use ambush tactics. He requested a full-scale attack on the Nangong family that very night. But before that, they had to eliminate the enemy's assault team. Yan Wang Jiangwen, who was standing nearby, announced his plan. Don't they like ambush tactics? Then I'll use that to lure them into the traps we've set. Wei Jia reminded him. According to the scouts' report, there's a powerful camp around the Nangong family estate. It's very likely that the Zhuge family is stationed there. The Zhuge family is renowned for their skill in setting up formations. Attacking them is not easy. Li Shixian was taken aback by this. He wondered if the commander had a way to break through the formation. Wei Jia chuckled at this. I have a secret plan, he said. He then instructed his subordinates to bring a chest. Inside were a large number of explosives. With these explosives, we can definitely destroy the Zhuge family's camp in a short time. Cut to a different scene. A small team of demons is rushing towards their headquarters. They must arrive at headquarters before attacking the Nangong family. Suddenly, there are several breaking sounds from the front. Numerous hidden weapons instantly pierce the bodies of dozens of people. Several figures slowly walk out of the darkness. The newcomer is none other than Nangong Jing, the young master of the Nangong family. The strike team he leads has been lying in wait here for a long time. There's no time for idle chatter. A full-scale battle is about to erupt. Huangfu Zhang's thunderbolt palm is fierce and domineering. As his inner strength condenses, a dazzling blue light flashes. With a resounding bang, the violent impact instantly kills the demon cult's tree man. Seeing the situation, Poison Hand realized things were bad. Ping's team was simply no match for them. He immediately ordered his men to break out to the left, but the 5 great families seemed prepared for this. A figure, graceful and valiant, appeared. In a flurry of movement, several were slain. The newcomer was none other than Huang Fuing, the daughter of the Huangfu family. At the same time, the 2 Peng brothers arrived in time. They charged into the crowd like tigers and wolves. Wielding their broadswords, they continuously claimed the lives of their enemies. After a one-sided slaughter, only one person remained from the devil cult squad. Nangong Jin stared intently at him. You devil cult vermin. He deserves to be punished. But Poison Hand didn't want to sit and wait for his doom. Baoyi stretched out his arm and charged at Nangong Jin. His sword, full of force, grazed past Nangong Jin's waist. As Nangong Jin dodged, Poison Hand let out a cunning smile. He shamelessly tried to escape from the side. But it seemed like Nangong Jin had anticipated his plan. His body twisted instantly. He cleaved his head with a single strike. Just as everyone was about to return to the Nangong family, a deafening roar suddenly came from the forest. With a series of heavy footsteps, a large group of devil cult members had blocked their path. Leading them was the unparalleled expert of the heaven-conquering palace, the King of Hell Sword. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but tremble in their hearts. This person is incredibly strong. Unbeatable. Even if everyone here joined forces, they wouldn't stand a chance. He is the strongest warrior of the Badian palace. His Dagger King's swordsmanship is masterful. He has few equals. He once followed the Princess Gu Yangping on campaigns throughout the land. He has killed countless enemies. His strength and loyalty to the Badian palace have earned him the respect of all the factions in the martial arts world. And he, as the guardian of the Badian palace, has now joined the ranks of the demon cult invading the Central Plains. Such a powerful figure made the children of the 5 great families tremble. The King of Hell Sword looked calm, saying to everyone, I don't want to hurt you. Surrender. Nangong Jin's eyes were resolute, even in death. We can't surrender either. The eldest son of the Nangong family, Nangong Jin, asks for your guidance. Yan Wanjian was stunned. So you're the grandson of Nangong Chang? I admire him greatly. Then let me see how much strength his descendants possess. Facing such a powerful opponent, Nangong Jin dared not be careless. His figure shot up like a gust of wind. Sky Sword technique, first move, heavily peak slash. But King Yama's sword simply dodged it with a slight turn of the body. This was not unexpected for Nangong Jin. After a probing strike, the second move was poised and ready. All his internal energy was gathered at the tip of his sword, aiming straight for King Yama's sword's throat. King Yama's sword remained calm. You're still too weak. Then, the saber was lightly swung forward. 2 bursts of powerful internal energy collided instantly. With a bang, the Blue Palace golden body shot out. It skimmed across the ground for several feet before finally stopping. A feeling of weakness and emptiness surged through his heart. Is the gap really this big? Then, his aura climbed to its peak. He's going to use the strongest move from the Heavenly Sword technique. He hasn't fully mastered it yet, but there's no other choice now. Man and sword is one. The violent energy wave blasts forward at incredible speed. Interesting, Yan Wang mutters. He swings his cleaver forward. A wave of fierce energy instantly pulverizes the sword energy. The aftershock brought a violent impact that Nangong Jin found hard to parry. When everything calmed down, blood uncontrollably gushed out from Nangong Jin's mouth. It was obvious he had suffered extremely severe internal injuries. Huang Fu Zhang rushed forward to help him up, and at the same time, he transmitted his voice to the people behind him, saying, "This person is too powerful. We are no match for him. I'll find a way to hold him off. You take brother Nangong and leave." Her younger sister, Huang Fuyin, was about to step forward to help, but was stopped by his gaze. "You must go. Don't make any unnecessary sacrifices." He then cupped his fists towards the King of Hell. "Huang Fu Zhang of the Huangfu family is here to challenge you." With a loud boom, he unleashed a surge of powerful energy in all directions. He roared to his companions, telling them to run. Taking advantage of the distraction, they scattered in all directions. The demon cult disciples instantly reacted, giving chase. Huangfu Zhangjin. Yan Wangjian did not pursue them. He breathed a sigh of relief. He remained expressionless. Calmly he said, "Do you think they can escape?" Huangfu Zhang's eyes were resolute. "As long as I can hold back the elder, it's enough." Yan Wangjian chuckled softly. "Then let me see how you intend to hold him back." Huangfu Zhang said nothing more. His internal energy started to gather rapidly. He knew that no matter what, he was no match for his opponent's single move. He could only use his strongest move to buy some time. He then shouted a war cry. "Thunderclap Mountain Palm." A deafening roar erupted. The palm force shook the air. Countless pieces of rock attacked the King of Hell sword. The opponent let out a cry of surprise. The cleaver, imbued with a violent force, shattered the opponent's attack with a single cut. The aftershocks remained, directly striking Huangfu Zhang. He slid along the ground for dozens of meters before losing consciousness. The King of Hell sword did not intend to kill him. "Take him back to headquarters. I will personally deal with him." The Nangong family on the other side. The head of the Nangong family received a report from the guards. A messenger from the demon cult had arrived to negotiate. He immediately went to the courtyard to meet him. Unexpectedly, the other party used the guise of negotiation to persuade them to surrender. They demanded that the Nangong family surrender and close their doors for 3 years. Otherwise, the demon cult would launch a full-scale attack, annihilate the entire family. The head of the Nangong family laughed angrily. "My Nangong family would rather be broken into pieces than remain whole. We will not surrender. Go back and tell your master. If they want to fight, we will fight." The emissary of the demon cult snorted coldly. He turned and left. "You will regret this. Rumor has it that there is a mysterious family in the martial arts world, the Zhuge family. They are skilled at using the power of the 5 elements, which are interdependent and mutually constraining. They can set up an illusionary formation within a fixed space. Those who enter this formation will be lost in illusions. Now, the demon cult is launching a full-scale attack on the Nangong family. Hundreds of demon cult advance teams have been trapped within the formation. Just as everyone was praising the ingenuity of the Zhuge family's formation, suddenly a series of deafening explosions shattered the peace. It turns out the devil cult used explosives to open a breach in the formation. A large force is launching a fierce attack from the breach. The 5 Grand Masters learned of the situation and were shocked. They never imagined the other side would use gunpowder, a prohibited weapon. The court has always turned a blind eye to the conflicts between various factions. Using gunpowder? Aren't they afraid of the court's intervention? It has come to this. We can only fight. Thousands of demon cult soldiers launched a general attack from the East Gate. The heads of each family led their elite forces to fight bravely. The clash of weapons and the screams of the dying were incessant. At this moment, the children of the noble families only had one thought: kill one, get your money's worth. Kill two, you've made a profit. This fierce fighting style actually. They had gradually gained the upper hand. But the 2 protectors of the demon cult were also powerful. They were like tigers entering a pack of wolves, ruthlessly reaping lives. In an instant, dozens of young disciples from the families were slain. The slaughter lasted the entire night. Finally, through the combined efforts of the 5 great families, the demon cult suffered heavy losses. They were forced to retreat and regroup. The scene shifts. Disciples from the 9 major sects were rushing towards the Nangong family along the shores of Dongting Lake. At this moment, a carrier pigeon brought encouraging news. The 5 great families had joined forces to repel the first wave of the demon cult's attack. Although 400 elite warriors had been lost, they had left behind 2,000 corpses of the demon cult. Hearing this, everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. They then decided to rest for a while at this location. At this time, a scout from the beggar clan brought news. They rescued 3 members of the family's raiding squad. The heavily injured Nangong Jing was helped along by the other 2. The beggar clan elder quickly ordered his men to treat their wounds. After a brief rest, everyone continued on their journey. While about to pass through a valley, Woody felt a strong sense of danger. He sensed a large group of people on the cliff. He then ordered Tieshue to go to the high ground to investigate the situation. Tieshue let out an eagle's cry and flew towards the top of the cliff. Then, just as he was about to tell everyone to be careful, suddenly countless blood-red blades shot down from the cliff. This sudden event caught everyone completely by surprise, and in the blink of an eye, dozens of people had been pierced through. Guiyong, the elder of the Huashan sect, reacted quickly. He hurriedly led everyone towards the cliff cave nearby. Guiyong looked at his fallen comrade, bathed in blood. He cursed under his breath, "Damn it! This blood-red sword was from the hand of Blood Patriarch, the ancestor of the Batian Palace." On the cliff edge, countless archers in red robes lined up. Chen He, the elder of Batian Palace, shouted loudly to those below, "You have nowhere to retreat. Those who surrender will not be killed." Guiyong roared, "We, the young heroes of the Central Plains, have iron bones and unyielding spirits. We will never bow to you demons." Before he could finish, a storm of swords rained down again. The elders of each sect hastily discussed how to overcome this crisis. To break through, we must charge onto the cliff and fight to the death. But they have the blood bow core. We simply couldn't get out of this cliff cave. Just when everyone was at their wits' end, Wu Di, hiding behind the rocks, was grumbling, "How dare you shoot an arrow at me? When it comes to bow and arrow, I'm your ancestor." He then picked up the blood sword the other side had shot at him. "It seems I need to teach you all a lesson about how to behave today." His swordsmanship was superb, 100 hits out of 100 shots. At just 17 years old, he reached the pinnacle of swordsmanship, with the realm of converting chi into a sword. But now he's trapped under a cliff, relentlessly shot at by the bloodwork squad of the demon cult. "You dare use a sword against me? I am the ancestor of bows and arrows." He immediately drew his bow and notched an arrow, ready to teach them a lesson. Guorong, standing nearby, wore a mocking expression. "This place is only 10 zhang away from the top of the cliff. Moreover, shooting an arrow upwards from below is completely useless. You're not scared, silly, are you?" Wu Di, however, ignored the spoiled young lady's words. The sword stone in his hand had already shot out. Just as Guorong was about to watch him make a fool of himself, the arrow shot towards the bottom of the cliff at a speed that was impossible to see with the naked eye. With a poochie sound, the sword pierced straight through the archer's throat. The others saw their comrade fall, with a look of surprise. How did he slip down himself? Before the words finished, the arm holding the sword pierced directly through his head from above. Before they could react, dozens of red lights shot up from the bottom of the cliff. This left everyone completely bewildered. The next second, the swords suddenly turned their arrowheads. It was as if they had eyes. They went straight towards the blood workers. Although they held shields, they couldn't block the invincible tracking arrows. In an instant, dozens more were killed. Chen He watched the scene. His heart was filled with shock. He never thought there would be such skilled swordsmanship in the world. Someone so skilled. Guorong was stared at for this incredible performance. Wu Di said impatiently, "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and pick up some swords for me." Guorong could only collect the swords nervously. "I couldn't help but think, this fool has some skills." At this moment, the blood assault team spotted Wu Di. Their fierce attacks suddenly surged forward. Wu Di ducked behind a rock, deflecting all the swords. Seeing their normal attacks fail, they called for several companions to channel their energy. With a whoosh, the combined force of their swords shot out. The immense power shattered the boulder. The invincible figure was completely exposed. "Now's your chance, kill him." Without the boulder's cover, the invincible one walked forward. Everyone was shocked. It was like he was asking to die. Guorong cried out anxiously, "You fool!" Wu Di ignored the call to return. In the blink of an eye, countless swords were right in front of him. A deafening roar exploded around him. As the dust settled, Wu Di was holding a sword, his eyes full of defiance. His next move left everyone speechless. He was like a frog, dodging and weaving through the rain of swords. But it left everyone speechless. What kind of incredible martial arts is this? They couldn't help but give him a thumbs up. Meanwhile, the bloodwork team had once again gathered the strength of several people. A deadly arrow, with the sound of air ripping apart, shot towards the unstoppable. He pulled the bow with his bare hands. He used the power of the vaporized sword, the invisible sword that crushes everything with ease. Colliding with the blood sword, he instantly turned the arrows into dust, and killed a few members of the blood attack team. Then he went to the elders. "I will hold back the blood bow team. All of you charge up the cliff. Break the stalemate." Then the invincible man shouted. 6 arrows at once. They blasted towards the cliff top. With a single command, everyone charged up the cliff wall. The blood bow team was just about to draw their bows and shoot, but the invincible arrows were already piercing through their bodies. The disciples of all the sects rushed to the top of the cliff, immediately beginning their massacre. Close combat is the weakness of archers. He crushed them all with ease. Chen He's face darkened. He hadn't expected that a single person could turn the tide of the entire battle. He immediately ordered his elite squad to provide support. But at that moment, Wu Di had already appeared before him. "You're the strongest opponent I've met since I left the mountain. Come and play with me." As everyone knows, close quarters combat is an archer's weakness, but Wu Di chose to use his bow and arrow against a swordsmanship expert. Under the opponent's fierce attack, he used his uncanny footwork to create distance. He unleashed the sword of Qi, an invisible blade like a flash of lightning aimed straight at Chen He's face. But for a master, it was still slightly lacking. As long as the opponent calculates his shooting trajectory, they can easily avoid the attack of the invisible sword. The invincible obviously also realized the weakness of the gasified sword. He then poured his internal energy into performing the tracking blocking sword. But this move was deflected by the sword energy released by Chen He. Chen He saw at a glance that the so-called tracking blocking sword is simply applying swordsmanship to archery. He then let out a loud roar. The sharp sword shot towards Wu Di. Wu Di dodged it easily by slightly moving to the side. Just as he was wondering why the opponent had thrown the sword suddenly changed direction. It stabbed towards the back of his head. Wu Di hurriedly ducked to avoid the sudden attack, but before he could react, a red light flashed past his waist like lightning. Chen He reached out and caught the sword. "Your archery is useless against me. Draw your sword." Wu Di looked at the torn corner of his clothes. He fell into thought. This sword could have left a wound on his body, but the other person only tore his clothes. This is a worthy and powerful opponent. The invincible one let out a light laugh. "Then let's have a palace duel." He then casually picked up a long sword from the ground. "Let's settle this with one move." Chen He heard this. His face became serious. That's exactly what he wanted. He then suddenly let out a loud roar. The sword in his hand transformed into a bolt of lightning, shooting out. This was his strongest attack, more powerful than using the blazing slash at the same time as the encounter sword. The violent sword energy surged toward Wu Di like a giant dragon. Wu Di raised his sword high. His powerful internal energy continuously gathered towards the blade. The second form of the shadow sword technique, merciless sword. The two forces collided. A loud bang echoed, followed by the sound of Chen He's sword shattering. Chen He's heart cried out in anguish. This sword was forged from ancient iron, 1,000 years old, yet it was effortlessly shattered by the opponent's ordinary blade. Wu Di remained emotionless. "This was just a defensive move on my part. You've lost. It's over." Chen He was speechless. "Kill or spare him, I leave it to your discretion. But regarding this matter, Wu Di has changed his mind. This person acts with integrity and openness. Keeping him alive will be useful in the future. I hear the young master of the Huangfu clan is in your custody. Release him." Hua Ba turned and leaped off the cliff. He laughed. This move really left Chen He confused. He could only silently remember in his heart that he owed you his life. Meanwhile, the martial alliance had achieved a complete victory. Seeing Wu Di return, they all expressed their gratitude. In this battle, the martial alliance only suffered over 30 casualties, but left behind over 200 enemy corpses. After a long journey, everyone finally arrived at the Nangong family estate. The Nangong family head was extremely excited. He personally greeted them. Wu Di naturally became a guest of honor. When Nangong Chang and Tang Tianhao heard of his exploits, they both showed admiration. Seeing the Tang family members present, Wu Di immediately stated his purpose. "My grandfather told me to go to the Tang family to find my bride. When I was 4 years old, he made a marriage agreement with the head of the Tang family." Tang Tianhao was taken aback. He hadn't heard his son mention this before. Then his expression suddenly turned to secret delight. This boy's martial arts skills are unfathomable. His words and actions have the air of a great general. He's truly getting more and more likable. But Nangong Chang looked at him with jealousy. "The Tang family is always strict in selecting sons-in-law. My granddaughters are also beauties like falling flowers and sinking fish. How about you choose one of them?" Unexpectedly, Tang Tianhao burst out laughing and said to him, "You old geezer. You're trying to steal my future son-in-law right under my nose." Then he lowered his voice and said to Wu Di, "Child, I am your future bride's grandfather." Wu Di was startled by what he heard. He quickly knelt down and bowed. "Son-in-law, Wu Di greets you." It wasn't until nightfall that everyone finally got up and dispersed. Tang Tianhao still had a happy smile on his face. Then, Tang's second son said, "Although I've heard that Wu Di's swordsmanship is superb, it's still unclear how strong his martial arts really are. So you think it's inappropriate to confirm Susu's engagement?" Tang Tianhao scoffed. "His martial arts are far superior to yours. He hides an inner strength that even I fear." Nan Gongcheng, who was standing nearby, agreed. "Wait, what's even more astonishing is, he can perfectly conceal such immense inner strength." The two of them were utterly shocked. What kind of monster is he? He even subdued 2 legendary figures. After the fierce battle with the demon cult, the Nangong family enjoyed a brief peace. His invincible and godlike deeds quickly spread among the younger generation of different sects. Since ancient times, beautiful women have loved heroes. Many beautiful women cast their admiring glances at Wu Di. This gave Wu Di a headache. With no other option, he could only run to the tree to take a nap. Unexpectedly, Tieshue brought shocking news in English. What? The demonic cult's army is heading towards here. Chirp 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 chirp. What? There are thousands of them? And at this moment, outside the Nangong residence, there was a cloud of dust rising, this time entering the palace. The elder of the Oil Domination Palace, Li Shixian, personally led. Almost all the elite of the Qing dynasty were mobilized. They all had murderous looks in their eyes, shouting to exterminate the Nangong family. The disciples of the Martial Arts Alliance were not kind either. They all displayed their supernatural abilities, fighting bravely and killing the enemy. Standing high, he muttered to himself. Their forces are 3 times ours. Looks like a tough fight. At that moment, Wang Yuan, the Blood Assault Team captain, suddenly gave the order. Launch a fierce attack. The sudden onslaught of swordsmen took the Martial Alliance by surprise. Someone yelled, take out their archers first. The crowd, hearing this, they charged at the Blood Warriors, regardless of life or death. But before they got close, they were pierced by sharp arrows. The invincible arrow no longer hesitated. He instantly pulled back the iron bow in his hand. With a whoosh, the green branches shot out like lightning. With just one shot, he pierced through the bodies of 3 blood workers. Gui Jia and Wang Yuan, witnessing this, cried out in their hearts, there is such a powerful archer in the world. They immediately pointed at the invincible figure above and shouted angrily, kill him. With a single order, countless swords were already in front of the invincible figure. But the invincible figure's movements were extremely bizarre. It keeps flashing, weaving back and forth in the sword feathers. Then he revealed himself like a full moon. Let you try my new trick. With a buzzing sound, 6 invisible swords swept away like lightning. The Yama sword and Shen He's sword in the arena were startled. If this continues, the Blood Assault Squad will be completely wiped out. Immediately, 2 figures flashed in front of the Blood Assault Squad. They went all out, attempting to neutralize the invisible sword. Unexpectedly, the invincible sword could turn. It directly bypassed them. The Blood Assault Squad was thrown into chaos, completely defeated. Even though they saw it with their own eyes, it was still hard to believe. He landed a winning blow with one move. His face was full of joy. This move was improved after his last battle with Chen He. While he fired 6 invisible swords, he also used the tracking arrow block. The only problem was that it consumed 6 times more internal energy than usual. And on the ground, as more experts from the Batian Palace joined the fight, Lin Meng's side gradually fell into a disadvantage. War is merciless. Only with strong strength can one survive. But the ordinary disciples of each faction find it hard to resist the opponent's encirclement. As time goes on, the disadvantage becomes more and more apparent. Wu Di knows that if things go on like this, they will inevitably lose. He's about to use all his inner energy, regardless of the cost. When they were firing at full power, they discovered that the other side was retreating. This operation truly left Wu Di puzzled. He saw Mad Blade say to Wu Lin Mengli, next time will be the final battle. The Blood Shadow Group's elite will uproot the Nangong family. In this battle, the Wu Lin alliance suffered heavy losses. Nangong Chang side. The Blood Shadow Group's masters are all incredibly powerful. With our current forces, it's probably difficult to hold them off. On the other side, the elder from the Heaven Palace addressed the commander, asking why he wasn't deploying the Blood Shadow Squad to take down the Nangong family in one fell swoop. But Gui Jia replied that now is not the time to take down the Nangong family. Our main objective is to draw the Northern Martial Alliance's attention here. The princess is strategizing to weaken the Martial Alliance's power. Meanwhile, the Nangong family held an emergency meeting. The current situation is extremely unfavorable to them. Tang Tianhao thought for a long time, and slowly said, now we have only 2 choices. 1 is to fight to the death, and die with honor. 2 is for the future of the family, to retreat to the north. The head of the Nangong family looked dejected upon hearing this. Giving up the family's foundation is a disgrace to any noble house. But for the sake of the family's survival, there is no other choice. Late at night, the Nangong family rushed towards the north. To avoid being ambushed by the enemy, they chose to travel on mountain roads, circling around Dongting Lake. Their destination is the 9-Dragon Mountain in the northwest. The terrain there is treacherous. It's suitable to ambush the Taoist priests. The Batian Palace will definitely send troops to intercept them. This time, we must get some revenge. On the other side, the Batian Palace also received the news of the Nangong family's withdrawal. Li Shixian couldn't help but laugh out loud. If I'm not mistaken, to avenge their defeat, they will definitely set up an ambush at Jiulong Mountain. Let's wait for our pursuers to walk right into our trap. But don't worry, our Shadow Corps will be there waiting for them. We just need to pretend to chase them. Lead them to believe they've fallen into our snare. His attack is divine. His swordsmanship is unparalleled. At only 20 years old, he has already joined the ranks of the most powerful masters. Now, however, he's drawn into the conflict between the demon cult and the Central Plains martial arts world in search of a wife he's never met. The Nangong family has decided to set up an ambush on Nine Dragon Mountain. They're waiting for the demon cult's pursuers to arrive. They're eager to strike back. But they didn't expect the demon cult to have already foreseen their plan. The Blood Shadow Group leader, Mad Blade, leads a group of elite assassins, determined to reach Nine Dragon Mountain before the Nangong family. But whenever he thinks of Woody, he has a serious expression. He recognizes him as the one who saved the old princess on Mount Song. Could it be that the old prince is still alive? If he is still alive, I must never let his followers discover the truth. No matter what, I have to destroy the Nangong family at Jiulong Mountain. Only then can I completely conceal the truth. Jiulong Mountain is a treacherous terrain. The demon cult forces have set another deadly trap. By the time the Nangong family arrives, there will be no escape. Ambush ahead. Pursuers behind. Now we must choose one side to break through and fight to the death. Nan Gongcheng and Tang Tianhao, the two elders, immediately decided to pave the way for the family. They were once renowned, unparalleled masters. Just their aura sent chills down everyone's spines. Huang Dao understood the situation, too. The Blood Shadow Corps immediately intercepted. The heavenly sword technique of Nangong City had reached its peak. With a flash of his sword, he killed several people on the spot. Tang Tianhao remained calm in the face of dozens of attackers. With a wave of his hand, countless hidden weapons shot out. The Blood Shadow Corps hadn't even had time to react. They were pierced through. The madman with a body of steel knew that they couldn't waste too many troops on the two elders. With a single command, the Blood Shadow Squad launched a fierce attack on the young masters of the noble families. Suddenly, Wu Di flashed forward, appearing in front of everyone. He swung his sword in a seemingly ordinary motion. The move looked simple, but it sent the enemy reeling, their ranks in disarray. He didn't use the shadow sword technique. Instead, he simply slashed at random, without any discernible form. Yet, every strike was imbued with an unmatched force. This stunned the young masters from the wealthy families. This guy's swordsmanship is so powerful. At this point, both sides were fighting fiercely. Nangong Cheng kept swinging his sword, taking lives. They knew they couldn't keep dragging this out. They had to finish this quickly. Tang Tianhao let out a roar. His inner strength suddenly surged. Rain of pear flowers. A buzzing sound. Countless hidden weapons suddenly burst out in all directions. Such a dense attack. The Blood Shadow Group had nowhere to hide. In an instant, the surrounding assassins were all wiped out. Seeing the obstacles cleared on their path forward, the Nangong family members rushed into the valley. But at this moment, Wu Di was at the back of the team. The pursuers led by Yan Wangjian arrived at the same time. Wu Di calmly took out the iron bow behind him. Several invisible swords shot out instantly. Although Yan Wangjian immediately countered, several people were still struck by the swords. They died on the spot. At this time, his companions called out to Wu Di to retreat to the valley. Invincible Sword no longer practiced his swordsmanship. He quickly charged towards the rear, but when he reached the valley entrance, he found the two Nangong family brothers guarding it. "Let's go quickly. We'll catch up with you." Invincible didn't think much of it. He ran directly towards his companions. But the more he ran, the more he felt something was wrong. They wanted to use the sacrifice of their disciples to buy time to escape. Meanwhile, all the masters of the Batian Palace had assembled at the mouth of the valley. The two heads of the Nangong family stood with swords in hand. They remained silent. "You can't stop us. Step aside." The head of the Nangong family's eyes were sharp. He said calmly, "Then you'll have to step over our corpses." Gui Jia urged, "Elder, if we delay any longer, we might not catch up to them." Li Shixian, hearing this, became furious. "Even in war, I show respect to my opponent." He then ordered Yan Wanjian and Chen He to engage in combat. Gui Jia, however, scoffed at their noble and righteous behavior. The fight to the death began with the clash of weapons. The head of the Nangong family knew that the King of Hell sword was incredibly powerful. Only by using his strongest move could he stand a chance against it. He then focused all his internal energy into the blade. He yelled a battle cry. Man and sword become one. A violent sword energy erupted outwards. The King of Hell sword was shaped like a sword. It felt the power within. Life and death are at stake. Don't be careless. The third reincarnation of the King Yama sword technique, the swallow-splitting slash. A thunderous roar echoed throughout the valley. As the dust settled, the head of the Nangong family vomited blood and fell to his knees. His younger brother was even weaker. Under Chen He's pressure, he was killed with a single blow. The head of the Nangong family weakly muttered, "Kill me." The Yan Luo sword was raised high, like a cleaver. "You are a worthy opponent. I'm sorry, but at that moment, a whistling sound shot through the air like lightning. Its speed was so fast that he had no time to react. The invisible sword pierced his abdomen in an instant. The invincible man, wielding an iron rod, approached slowly. He glanced at everyone with a cold expression. Then he carried the on his back. He said softly, I'll take you back. Seeing this, Li Shixian said darkly, you think you can just walk away? The invincible man's eyes became incredibly sharp, you yourselves make way, or I'll carve a path through you. He, with a single sword, could stand against 1,000 soldiers. Facing the onslaught of hundreds of blood shadow assassins, he was fearless. With every swing of his sword, dozens of men were sent flying in a spray of blood. The techniques he used were the most basic of swordsmanship, chopping, slashing, and thrusting. Yet each strike held a power that was unmatched and unstoppable. It was a one-sided slaughter. The only sounds coming from the scene were the tearing of flesh and agonizing screams. This caused the high-ranking members of the demon cult to cry out in their hearts. What kind of monster is this guy? Suddenly, Mad Blade and Chen He teamed up and launched a fierce attack on Unbeatable. But under Unbeatable's furious offensive, they couldn't get close at all. Chen He felt increasingly alarmed with each strike. He had been continuously using sword energy for half an hour. Why couldn't he feel his inner strength diminishing? Wu Di looked at Chen He coldly. He said, are you sure you want to stop me? I didn't want to kill you. Chen He heard this. He remained silent. Wu Di said nothing more. He charged forward like a bolt of lightning. The speed of his wolf steps was too fast for Chen He to see clearly. With a whoosh, their figures crossed paths almost instantly. Chen He's pupils constricted. His face was filled with disbelief. How is this possible? I clearly blocked his sword. The next second, a column of blood erupted from my chest. He looked serious. He asked Wu Di, can you tell me what kind of swordsmanship this is? It's my family's shadow swordsmanship. The first level, the sword of no thought. A sword without thought? It's an honor to die under such exquisite swordsmanship. Seeing this, Li Shixian roared in anger, drawing his blade, rushing towards Wu Di. He was the Grand Elder of the Baidian Palace. His strength should not be underestimated. He had followed Gu Yongpeng through countless battles. Faced with such a powerful opponent, he felt a surge of invincibility in his heart. After a long battle, his internal energy was running low. If he wanted to go back alive, he had to finish the fight quickly. Li Shixian's aura, however, was absolutely terrifying. He raised his sharp sword high and let out a long howl. With a whoosh, a powerful beam of sword energy, like thunder, shot towards him. Wu Di couldn't help but raise his guard. On high alert, his substantial inner strength continuously gathered towards the blade, the merciless sword. The two forces collided. A deafening roar erupted. The violent wave of energy instantly shattered Li Shixian's attack. Then, the aftermath continued. The tidal wave swept. Before the impact subsided, the invincible figure was already in front of Li Shixian. They crossed paths with the sound of their weapons clashing. His invincible waist was injured. A stream of blood gushed out. He had consumed too much. He couldn't stay any longer. He immediately ran towards the valley, carrying the on his back. Wei Jiajin fled for his life. The Blood Shadow Squad pursued him. Li Shixian, clutching his chest, was filled with resentment. He muttered, I never thought I'd die at the hands of a yellow-haired boy. Seeing this, Wei Jia roared, quickly, treat their wounds. The scene shifts. Wu Di, under relentless pursuit by the Blood Shadow Squad, finds himself in a desperate situation. Blood continues to seep from the wound on his waist. His inner strength is nearly depleted. Suddenly, a one-armed old man appears before everyone. It's Gu Yongpeng, the old prince of the Ba Tian Palace. Wu Di couldn't help but tease, you old geezer, you still know how to find me? You know, Gu Yongpeng said smugly, you go first. I'll reason with them and send them away. The Blood Shadow duo were chatting idly and angrily shouted, no matter who you are, no one is leaving today. Gu Yongpeng glanced at them lightly, don't you even recognize the old prince? On the other side, the Wulin Alliance members fled to the Yangtze River. They needed to find a boat to cross the Yangtze River to be safe. Their companions were very worried about Wu Di's safety. They argued to go back and check the situation. At this moment, three figures slowly walked out from the woods. Wu Di was carrying the head of the Nangong family on his back and he was grumbling to Gu Yangpeng, damn old man. Knowing I was injured, you still wouldn't help me. The scene changes. Everyone had already crossed the Yangtze River and arrived at the Zhuge family to recuperate. A few days later, Wu Di proposed to Tang Tianhao that he wanted to go to Sichuan. Although Tang Susu would be joining her father to provide support in a few months, he still insisted on going to the Tang family to greet her. Meanwhile, inside the Baidian palace, Wei Jia reported the situation to the newly appointed princess's official consort. Upon hearing of the loss of several generals in this battle, the consort's face was filled with shock. They wondered when such a young and skilled fighter had appeared in the martial arts world. Wei Jia gritted his teeth and said, no matter what, we must kill him. I will arrange for an assassination. The Yangtze River has always been a vital waterway for trade between the north and south. Wu Di arrived at the docks, searching for a cargo ship heading to Sichuan. But unbeknownst to them, the cargo ship harbored a deadly secret, an assassination plot by the demon cult. The next morning, Several boats flying rice flags approached from the distance. They were the water dragons, notorious pirates who terrorized the waters of the Yangtze River. But the captain of the Silver Horse Trading Company remained calm. They had an unwritten agreement with the water dragons. As long as a toll was paid, passage was safe. As the water dragon boats drew near, several grappling hooks landed firmly on the merchant ship's railing. The leader of the water dragon gang approached with a playful smile. "So it's the Silver Horse Trading Company. Pleased to meet you." The captain got straight to the point, presenting a bag of hundreds of silver coins. "This is the toll for passing through. Please grant us passage." The gang leader looked dismissive. "We've been hired for this trip. No money, no mercy. You want to kill everyone here?" The captain of the life squad thought, "It makes sense. When I was with the trading caravan, I couldn't cry." Woody saw this and felt helpless. Why did he get caught in conflict wherever he went? He took a big step forward, ready to take action to settle the matter. Just then, a figure suddenly turned around. A sword pierced into his chest. The sudden event left Woody incredulous. He coldly asked, "Why?" The ferryman sneered, "You thought you could escape the pursuit of the heavenly palace?" It turned out that this was a trap set by the ferryman and the water dragon gang. Their goal was to make Woody let down his guard and assassinate him. Fortunately, he dodged the fatal blow at the crucial moment. The boatman, seeing that he was not dead, immediately ordered the water dragon gang to attack and surround him. Just as Woody was about to pull out his dagger to fight, a large hand stopped him. "I'm the captain. You're badly injured. They will hand you over to me." He then looked coldly at the boatman and said, "You're not my brother." The ferryman laughed, "Your brother's skin is really useful." He then tore off the human skin mask. "His skin is very thick. It took me a long time to peel it off." The captain was furious. "I will tear you limb from limb." Seeing the captain's anger, the water dragon gang all shouted and knelt down, kowtowing. They trembled as they said, "Greetings to you, Captain." So the captain is Duijong, who unified the entire Yangtze River region 20 years ago. Under his rule, the Rice Group became a powerful force. At this moment, the assassin said with a grim face, "The Overlord is about to dominate the entire martial arts world. Even you have no choice but to submit." Suddenly, Woody grabbed Duijong and said, "This man's life is mine." He then immediately pulled out the dagger from his chest. Duijong saw this and quickly sealed his acupoints to stop the bleeding. "I will return this sword to you after I chop off your head. We'll see how you can still be so stubborn." He then swung his long sword towards Woody's throat, but Woody's body moved slightly, leaving behind an afterimage. With a sudden hiss, the dagger struck the assassin's heart with perfect accuracy. It was over. Woody took out the jade pendant he had been hiding in his chest. It was this jade pendant that had saved him from the fatal blow. A few days later, Woody appeared at an inn at the foot of Phoenix Mountain in Sichuan. He learned from the innkeeper that the Tang family was located in Chengdu, and this place was only 50 kilometers away from Chengdu. Woody was overjoyed. This meant that he would soon see his wife. The excitement kept him awake. Suddenly, a noisy conversation came from the next room. His sharp ears picked up the word Tang. He leaned against the wall and started eavesdropping. Unexpectedly, he heard news of a siege against the Tang clan. Woody's face turned dark instantly. It seemed they were the Tang clan's sworn enemies, people from the Five Poisons sect. The next morning, a group of people marched towards Chengdu along Phoenix Mountain. Wu Jingguang, the elder of the Five Poisons sect, said solemnly that this annihilation of the Tang family cannot have any accidents. The blood poison hand on the side looked calm. "Don't worry, with the poison master's help, this battle will be a sure win. After wiping out the Tang family, my Five Poisons sect will surely become one of the new 5 great clans." A figure was closely following them from a distance. The other side was much stronger. Woody didn't recklessly attack. He planned to use an ambush tactic to weaken their forces. With a whoosh, the invisible sword turned 18 bends in the forest. It pierced straight through the chest of a Five Poisons sect disciple. A strange team appeared on Phoenix Mountain. They carried wooden boxes resembling coffins. Their faces were filled with murderous intent. These people came from the fearsome Five Poisons. Led by the sect master, Poison King, they were on their way to destroy the Tang family. Unbeknownst to them, a figure was secretly following from a distance. As the Tang family's son-in-law, the invincible naturally wouldn't stand idly by. He slightly moved the bowstring in his hand. He used his energy to form a sword. An invisible sword shot out like lightning. It went through 18 twists and turns in the forest. It directly pierced through the chest of a Five Poisons sect disciple. The sudden event caused some confusion among the crowd. Woody changed his position after each shot. This made it impossible for the enemy to determine the location of his attack. In the blink of an eye, dozens have fallen. Under this hit-and-run tactic, the Poison King was furious, gnashing his teeth. All the dead had a hole through their chests, but it was impossible to tell what kind of evil had caused it. With no other choice, The Poison King could only order everyone to be on high alert. Just then, a beam of faint light, like lightning, struck Blood Poison Hand's chest. Blood Poison Hand reacted incredibly fast. He swung his sword and blocked the invisible blade, but at the same time, he was incredibly shocked. The attack numbed his arm. It was not beneficial for him to stay on the mountain and command. He then shouted to everyone, quickly retreat to the open area below the mountain. Find him again. Wu Di remained calm in the face of this. The enemy's actions were all within his expectations. As everyone rushed down the mountain, countless wooden swords shot up from the forest. As the swords descended, screams erupted. Their heads were pierced. Seeing this, everyone quickly hid behind the trees, but this still couldn't withstand the powerful attack of the Qidao sword. Wu Jinguang knew this well. He couldn't just sit back and wait for death. He immediately roared a command. Leading his men, he charged toward the direction of the shooting. Wu Di saw the enemy chasing after him. He decided to run while reducing the enemy's numbers. It was a protracted tug-of-war. People kept falling in the pursuit. In the chase, he had already eliminated half of the enemy's forces, but he had unknowingly run back to the inn at the foot of the mountain. Suddenly, there was a bang. Dozens of disciples of the Five Poisons sect burst out of the door. They formed a circle, surrounding him completely. The Poison King said with a gloomy face, "Who are you? Why are you attacking us?" Calm and collected, replied, "I have my reasons. Are you curious?" Seeing this, the Poison King gnashed his teeth in anger. "Kill him." Hundreds of figures holding long swords slowly approached. Suddenly, appeared in front of one of them like lightning. He shattered the man's throat with a flick of 2 fingers. He snatched the long sword with a cold expression. Seeing this, the crowd rushed forward. Wu Di raised his sword and blocked the combined attack of the tree people. He found that their strength was very weak. He then swung his sword and killed the tree people. He then continued to attack with a series of moves. He realized they had no power to fight back. This made Wu Di feel a bit confused. With their strength, how dare they challenge the Tang family? Meanwhile, the Poison King and his companions were shocked. Five Poison sect disciples are skilled at releasing poison gas in battles using their internal energy. But why was he unaffected by the poison gas? Could he be from the Tang family? Only the Tang family can handle poison gas with such ease. Thinking about this, the Poison King roared. His body, like a cannonball, shot towards Unbeatable. His force, radiating poison, aimed directly at Unbeatable's chest. But the attack appeared to be slow as a snail in Unbeatable's eyes. He lifted his long sword, slicing at the Poison King's head. But the next second, he looked shocked. Under the sword, the other's palm remained unscathed. He could only retreat to dodge the attack. The Poison King's hands emanated a sinister aura, and countless claw shadows whipped towards Invincible. Invincible's movements were strange. He kept dodging. The Poison King's sword was deadlocked. He simply mobilized all his internal energy to unleash his strongest move. The black poison is a new growth. The black poisonous gas turned into a whirlwind, shooting towards Wu Di. Wu Di didn't dodge. He thrust his long sword forward fiercely. The raging internal force swept away, instantly crushing the poison gas. The Poison King struggled to hold on against the violent aftermath. When everything calmed down, countless wounds appeared on the Poison King's body. Blood continuously seeped out. He couldn't figure it out. Why Wu Di was able to survive in the poison gas. It had no effect whatsoever. The Blood Poison Hand, standing aside, exclaimed in shock, "Could this be the legendary immunity to all poisons?" Wu Di, seeing their hesitation, shouted, "Don't waste time. I have a long way to go." The Poison King and the others looked serious. "This person is too powerful. Even if we win, there would be heavy casualties too. It seems we can only use the last resort left for the Tang family in advance." Then, under the bewildered gaze of Wu Di, the disciples of the Five Poisons sect carried coffins one by one slowly. They seemed to contain a nauseating stench. Each coffin was carried onto the battlefield. They hid a certain sickening smell. Seeing this, Wu Di, a doubt arose in his mind. What on earth is this? Suddenly, with a bang, a powerful force from within the coffin violently lifted the lid. A group of foul-smelling poison zombies slowly walked out. As the Poison King's whistle rang out, a crimson, murderous glint appeared in the eyes of the Poison Master. He then launched a lightning-fast attack on Wu Di. Even though they were incredibly fast, to the Invincible, they were as slow as snails. Dodging, he brought his sword down with a fierce chop. Then, a flurry of sword strikes instantly pushed the Poison Master's back, but the Invincible was shocked. These Poison Master's bodies were even harder than steel. He couldn't even sense any pain on them. Even when pushed back, they would charge again, crazed. "I have to try another way to attack." Then, the Invincible One channeled his inner strength into his sword. A wave of violent energy suddenly burst out. The powerful force sent the Poison Corpse formation flying back several steps. But the next second, the Invincible One showed an expression of disbelief. The Poison Master was seen slowly getting up, trembling. No matter how many arms or legs were broken, they will all attack their target. As long as they can move, it's a fight to the death. Thinking about this, Wu Di used his inner strength to attack their brains. Only by beheading them would the poisoners lose their ability to move. Suddenly, Wu Di felt an obstacle in his inner strength circulation. Damn, poisoned. So the poisoner's true function is to release poison gas from the wound. I must eliminate them all before the poison takes full effect. Immediately, sword shadows crisscrossed. He continuously cut down the poisoned corpses. Seeing this, the Poison King cried out in his heart, these poisoned corpses were made from 1,000 poisons. Why is he still unaffected? What kind of person is he? No matter what, he must be killed before all the poison masters are sacrificed. Wu Jingguang and Bloody Hand heard this, and rushed towards Wu Di quickly. They instantly spread apart, and shot out several poisonous darts. Wu Di could only block all the darts with his sword. This gave the poison masters an opportunity. Although he reacted quickly, hearing off the head of one poison master, but due to the influence of the poison gas, he was accidentally scratched on the arm by another. At this time, his internal energy circulation was becoming increasingly hindered, while the poison in the wound became more intense. It spread rapidly in all directions. Wu Di gritted his teeth. He cut off the poisoned area with a sword. Life or death. No time for righteousness. He had to act quickly. He then used several sword energies to eliminate the poisonous corpses charging at him. Meanwhile, Wu Jingguang and Blood Poison Hand had already flown in front of him. Their blades clashed fiercely in the air. His invincible internal energy was disrupted. He was sent flying backwards. He slid several meters across the ground before finally stopping. He gasped, expelling a breath of stale air. His eyes sharpened with determination. His aura started to rise steadily. Are you ready to die? The intense killing intent made the two of them shudder. Suddenly, the invincible sword pointed at the sky. His internal energy was raging around him. With a loud hum, an incredibly violent force burst outwards in all directions. The poison master who was closest was instantly reduced to ashes. The third form of the shadow sword technique, Corpse God's Sword. A deafening boom echoed through the heavens. All the poison masters were destroyed in this attack. The Poison King and his men were completely shocked by this sight. There was such powerful swordsmanship in the world. As the dust settled, a pit several meters deep appeared around Wu Di. Blood continuously flowed from the corner of his mouth. Damn it, his internal energy was almost depleted. He had planned to kill them all with this move, but he was affected by the Poison Master. He couldn't unleash his full potential. He didn't even have a chance to escape, so he mobilized his remaining inner strength to disguise his aura to its peak. Then he coldly said to the Five Poison Sect, I am the son-in-law of the Tang family. That's why I attacked you. If you abandon the idea of attacking the Tang family, then I will let you leave. Everyone heard this, and looked at each other. This person is too powerful. If we keep fighting, I'm afraid the Five Poison Sect will be wiped from the martial arts world. The Poison King's face was full of reluctance. He roared in anger, let's go. He was undefeated in the forest and spent the night cultivating his chi and recovering from his wounds. With the help of his inner strength, by the next morning, he had managed to expel all the toxins from his body. His inner energy flow was even smoother than before. It seems that the fastest way to improve one's strength is through battle. Several days later, he appeared on the bustling streets of Chengdu. After inquiring around, he finally found the Tang family he had been dreaming of day and night. The young man was locked in a dark prison cell. He endured agonizing torture every day, his bones aching and breaking. They even used pliers to pull his fingernails out, one by one. Then they soaked the wounds in high-concentration salt water. The excruciating torture left him wailing in pain, wishing he were dead. But the torturer was his fiancée, whom he had been desperately searching for 2.5 years. He still couldn't understand why she would be so cruel. Wu Di finally arrived at the Tang family after days of arduous travel. She was greeted by a stunning woman with skin as smooth as jade. The two went to a side room to wait for the head of the Tang family. But when she learned the woman's name was Tang Susu, Wu Di was stunned. Wasn't this the fiancé she had been searching for all this time? So, she quickly told Tang Susu the purpose of her visit. Tang Susu was equally taken aback. Why has my father never mentioned this marriage? But seeing this person's handsome appearance, I don't know about his character. So I asked Wu Di to wait a moment, and decided to find my father to ask about the details of this marriage. Unexpectedly, when the head of the Tang family learned about this, he looked puzzled. He had never agreed to any marriage alliance, nor did he have any close friends living in the Changbai Mountains. He seemed to have thought of something. The martial arts world in Sichuan and Shu is now in turmoil. Except for the Tang family, all the other forces have fallen to the Beidian Palace. This person's arrival at our Tang family at this time is suspicious. I have every reason to believe he is a spy sent by the Beidian Palace. Tang Susu felt a surge of anger upon hearing this. That guy was a fraud. He turned his head to find Wu Di and settle the score. But the Tang family had told him not to act rashly. Instead of killing him, we should capture him alive. We can interrogate him to find out the enemy's next move. Go and put some drugs in his food. I want him alive. The scene shifts. Woody was tightly bound by iron chains. He only remembers having a few sips of wine in the room. Then his vision blurred. He lost consciousness, while Tieshue lay still at his feet. Just then, two figures emerged from the darkness. Woody was about to ask. Without saying a word, the other party hit me twice with a heavy stick. Tang Susu, her face full of anger, said, "Who sent you? What do you want to do to my Tang family?" Woody, bruised and swollen, gasped for breath. "I'm just here to find my bride," he said. "Why are you treating me like this? You're still talking tough even when you're about to die," he said. Then the iron bar rained down on Woody's body. The sound of his arm bones shattering echoed. He was still recovering from his serious injuries sustained in the fight with the 5 poison sect yesterday. He had no strength to resist at all. Tang Ji, the elder of the law enforcement hall, stepped forward and said coldly,